तव कथामृतं तप्तजीवनं कविभिरीडितं कल्मषापहं शरवणमङ्गलं श्रीमदातरं भुवि वदन्ति भूरिराजन्. Your words are like nectar, bringing life to scorched souls. They are praised by poets and remove all sin. They are auspicious to hear, wonderful and exalted. Those who spread these words throughout the world are truly giving souls. Welcome, everyone, to our class on the Gospel of Ramakrishna. We are on chapter 25, Advice to Pandit Shashadhar. And this is Monday, June 30th, 1884. And we're at the top of page 476. And Ramakrishna has been speaking directly to this Pandit Shashadhar. How long should one reason about the text of the scriptures? So long as one does not have direct realization of God. How long does the bee buzz about? As long as it is not sitting on a flower. No sooner does it light on a flower and begin to sip honey than it keeps quiet. Now, we have actually two different teachings that we get from Sri Ramakrishna. It's how long should one reason about the text of the scriptures, so long as one does not have direct realization of God. So this is one statement that he makes. But he also says that once we know what we're trying to do, then we don't have to keep reading about it over and over again. He gives the example of someone who was given a shopping list and he loses the shopping list and searches all about for it and then reads it and then knows what he has to buy, so throws it away, doesn't need it anymore. So this, we have to understand, nothing that Sri Ramakrishna says is really contradicting himself. He's always has a different reason and it's slightly different context and everything. So there are certain things that we should not keep going over and over and over again. We should understand things to the point where we have some conviction and we do our spiritual practice. But that doesn't mean that we don't constantly try to practice discrimination, discernment, and everything, because Sri Ramakrishna says that we have to do that constantly. We have to keep reminding ourselves. And so the problem is for those who want to be convinced about something before they start any spiritual practice. And this is the not the right way to go about it, that our understanding will deepen through our spiritual practice, but a time will come when we won't have to keep going over things again. Well, we'll become convinced about certain things. It doesn't mean we've realized it, but we become convinced about certain things, and we don't have to practice this type of deep reflection on them. That now we meditate and try to practice all of these things. So I would say that there are certain types of things that as soon as we get some deep conviction with regard to them, then we don't have to keep going over and over again in our minds with those things. But there are other things. Suppose I have a deep conviction regarding the real nature of the self, but I know that I keep getting confused and I keep identifying with the body and the mind, personality, and all of those things. So that we have to do this constant type of checking on ourselves so that we don't keep repeating these same mistakes, falsely identifying with everything. But the truth of that, I may have that conviction that I'm not this body and not this mind, I'm something else, that I don't have to keep convincing myself. but I keep practicing this type of discrimination until I realize it. So the very subtle type of distinction, but both points are very, very important points that uh, one can reason about the text until one has the direct realization of God. But we can also form a conviction about certain things, which we don't have to keep going over and over again in our minds. Once it's real conviction. And Sri Ramakrishna, he puts tremendous emphasis on this idea of conviction. This Sanskrit word vishwasa, vishash in Bengali. That once we have that, then we have everything we need in spiritual life. He really considers this to be one of the very final things. We may say in the beginning, we have to have the shraddha. That has to be there at the very beginning. But this conviction develops over and over and over again until it becomes something almost tangible. I've mentioned many times that Swami Swananda used to say that conviction itself is a type of realization. When it becomes strong enough that we're so convinced of something that it's almost like a type of realization of that. One of the reasons that Sri Ramakrishna is bringing all of this up is that there was always an issue and many questions Sri Ramakrishna about it, that why should a God realized soul talk so much? There was always this feeling that these realized souls will be silent, that they won't feel any need to speak. So Sri Ramakrishna, uh, he used to get that criticism a little bit from our Dr. Sharkar towards the end of his life. So that's a little bit about why this conversation is starting. But you must remember another thing. One may talk even after the realization of God. So now he's bringing that up. But then one talks only of God and of divine bliss. It is like a drunkard's crying, victory to the Divine Mother. He can hardly say anything else on account of his drunkenness. You can notice, too, that a bee makes an indistinct humming sound after having sipped the honey from a flower. The jnani reasons about the world through the process of neti, neti, not this, not this. Reasoning in this way, he at last comes to a state of bliss, and that is Brahman. What is the nature of a jnani? He behaves according to scriptural injunctions. Now, it's not necessarily what we expect. We may think, what is the nature of the jnani? Sometimes like a madman. But what Thakur is saying, he'll make a little distinction between the jnani and the vijnani. That'll be coming up. But this idea of neti neti, this is the main type of spiritual practice according to the Upanishadic period. This is the path of knowledge according to the Upanishad. The main path of knowledge is to somehow distinguish that which is real and eternal and unchanging from that which is transitory. This is the real and the unreal. And we do it in two ways. And Sri Ramakrishna will talk here a little bit about with this external universe, that anything that's changing can't be Brahman itself. But we do it also with our own self. That this the same process of de-identification, that identification, that as soon as we feel we're the body, we say, no, I'm not the body, I'm not the mind. So that way we get to the self within. One is a little bit looking at it from the cosmic point of view, and the other from the microcosmic point of view. Once I was taken to Chanak and saw some sadhus there. Several of them were sewing, all left. At the sight of us, they threw aside their sewing. They sat straight, crossing their legs, and conversed with us, all left. Anyhow, this is not the image that the sadhu wants to present to the world, that he's sewing. I don't see anything so wrong with it, but still, they're supposed to be studying the scriptures and meditating and everything. But they saw straight up when they saw the others coming. But jnanis will not talk about spiritual things without being asked. They will inquire at first about such things as your health and your family. Now, we can so easily get confused. Sometimes Thakur will say, jnani will only talk about God. Now he's saying something else. This is a little bit that they want to see if someone really has some interest. Yeah. If they find that people are not really interested, they won't feel any encouragement to speak about God. In fact, they'll feel just the opposite. Like Thakur sometimes used to say, I feel as if someone is pressing my tongue. I can't say anything. That happened with that Michael Madhusudan. That he came, there was a conversation. Somebody asked him once why he abandoned his own religion, became Christian, and he pointed to his belly. And then one other pundit was there or something. He was. Anybody remember? Narayan Shastri. And he really got furious and everything. What kind of person changes religion for his? And then he asked Ramakrishna to say something. And he said, I don't know why, for some reason, I feel as if someone is pressing my tongue. That means he didn't feel any inspiration to say anything to him. So yeah, we'll find this very often, that very spiritual people will not feel any inclination to talk about spiritual things in front of people who aren't really interested or who won't appreciate it. But the nature of the vijnani is different. Now, what is the jnani and what is the vijnani? Again, the jnani, Thakur uses these terms in slightly different senses. Sometimes he'll talk about the jnani and the bhakta. Jnani is someone following the path of knowledge. Sometimes he'll talk about the jnani as a wise person. Sometimes the jnani is the one who gets to the roof and has nirvikalpa samadhi and is not a vijnani till he comes back down again. So we have to try to figure out what's in Thakur's mind when he says things. The jnani will not talk about spiritual things and everything. So here he says the nature of the vijnani. He'll talk about the jnani. The nature of the vijnani is different. He is unconcerned about anything. Perhaps he carries his wearing cloth loose under his arm like a child, or perhaps the cloth has dropped from his body altogether. Now, this was a problem with Sri Ramakrishna, keeping his cloth on. He had such little body consciousness that it didn't matter to him at all. Oh, I'm reading this book. I mentioned it to many people. They're written by Swamiji's youngest brother, Mahendranath Datta. And he talks about how many times that Sri Ramakrishna, he used to go very often to Ramchandra Datta's house, which was right next to their house nearby. And they would always go because he was their uncle. They would always go when Sri Ramakrishna went there. And he was a boy. He was 12, 13, 14, 15 during that period. And he said that very often Sri Ramakrishna, while he's talking and everything, the cloth would fall off. He'd be completely naked there. And that nobody bothered and nobody minded. And this was strange because the society, these were very cultured people at that time. He said because some mood was created, and even the women would be there. They would try to arrange things in such a way that there would be some window or open door or something so that they could also see. And they also felt not the slightest hesitation or anything strange when Sri Ramakrishna was like that. And Thakur himself tells the story about Vyasa and Shukadeva, that Shukadeva was walking by and he had no clothes on or something. And everybody said, nobody, the young girls are there, and they didn't bat an eye. It didn't mean anything to them. And Vyasadeva, was he also naked? No, what was the story? They were in the river. So okay. They covered themselves. And they all covered themselves as soon as they saw Vyasadeva. That was it. Okay, so that they were naked. Huh? So then Vyasadeva said, what is this? That Here I'm an old man. You're feeling shame in front of me. But my son Shukadeva, yeah, you didn't even bother to cover it. Yeah, because he has no body consciousness whatsoever. Makes no difference between men and women and everything like that. Yeah, that's the story. Good. Thank you. Yeah, so just try to picture the scene. These are the wealthy, highly educated people of this very nice area of North Calcutta, the Shimla district and everything, inviting this uh, half illiterate uh, village Brahmin Pandit, this Ramakrishna there, who can't even keep his cloth on sometimes, and he raises the minds of everybody to such a level that people are hardly aware of it. It makes no difference to them at all. It's remarkable. A man who knows that God exists is a jnani. So now he's talking about a jnani in a lower sense. Sometimes the jnani is the one who gets to the roof and then come back and be a vijnani. Now he's talking about just having some type of conviction about the truth of either we can say of God or self. Jnani very often will not care too much for personal God. A jnani is like one who knows beyond a doubt that a log of wood contains fire. So he has that conviction, but not the realization. This 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 is the sense in which he's using jnani here. But a vijnani is he who lights the log, cooks over the fire, and is nourished by the food. The 8 fetters have fallen from the vijnani, all of the different passions. He may keep merely the appearance of lust, anger, and the rest. Pandit. The knots of the heart are cut asunder, all his doubts are destroyed. He's quoting a verse from the wonderful Upanishad that is explaining the transformation that takes place after God realization. That all the doubts are removed, all the crookedness of the heart, all the knots are untied, and all karma is burned up. He's not mentioning that one. These are the 3 things that they talk about. Master, yes, once a ship sailed into the ocean. Suddenly, its iron joints, nails, and screws fell out. The ship was passing a magnetic hill, and so all its iron was loosened. So, this means that there's a tremendous transformation that takes place. Somebody was asking me the other day uh, about sitting in meditation and getting that feeling that, yes, I'm the witness, I'm the self, and everything. And is something like that the samadhi experience? So of course I don't know anything about this samadhi experience, but I said when you have that real samadhi experience, everything gets changed. That there's such a violent transformation, even the body and everything. Body is like a dead body; it turns cold. You can hardly feel the pulse, or breathing, anything like that. And the transformation is complete uh, transformation, so that there's no doubt, no crookedness of the heart, no uh, karma even gets burned up. So this is something that Sri Ramakrishna is comparing to picture the body gets hit by lightning, and all of the molecules get rearranged. Something wonderful happens, magical happens. This is what that samadhi experience is like. Yeah, I'll never forget. I was in New York once, many years ago, and Swami Swananji happened to be visiting the center. I don't know why I was there at that time, but we were sitting in the library, and somebody asked him about the samadhi and everything, and then he would sometimes get that look in his face. He said, "You think samadhi is such a common thing that people are walking on the street, you'll find people with." Maybe they asked if he had samadhi, something like that, and he said, "Your breathing stops, your blood stops, so everything." He just to explain what a rare thing and what a dramatic change takes place if anybody has that real experience of samadhi. that the mind goes to a different realm completely that we only read about, that we only read about when we read about Sri Ramakrishna's own experiences. So this is a beautiful example. Once a ship sailed into the ocean. Suddenly its iron joints, nails, and screws fell out. The ship was passing a magnetic hill, and so all its iron was loosened. That means all of the impurities of the heart, all the old karma, whatever doubts, all of that, it just gets removed. I used to go to Krishna Kishore's house. Once, when I was there, he said to me, "Why do you chew betel?" Krishna Kishore was a little bit of a orthodox Hindu, we can say. He used to criticize Keshav and others a little, and also high spiritual stature, we can say, for one of the early household or devotees of Sri Ramakrishna before the others came. Once, when I was there, he said to me, "Why do you chew betel leaf?" This is a sign of worldly people, a little luxury. There's no reason he's a sadhu. So he's criticizing him a little bit. I said, "It is my sweet pleasure. I shall chew betel leaf. Look at my look at my face in the mirror and dance naked among 1,000 girls." And there's a footnote. It says, because the master was a vijnani. We don't need that footnote really, but the point is that none of these restrictions apply to somebody who has reached that stature. There's no question that he has some attachment to this or that, or he wants some type of enjoyment. He does these things, have to keep his mind down so that he can keep from being lost in samadhi all the time. So a very nice reply he gives. Krishna Kishore's wife scolded him and said, "What have you said to Ramakrishna? You don't know how to talk to people." In this state, passions like lust and anger are burned up, though nothing happens to the physical body. Of course, for some, this experience, especially this Mahabhava, these high emotional experiences, the body can have some, feel the effects of it to such an extent that Sri Ramakrishna says that it'll be like an elephant going into a little straw hut. We say a bull in the china shop, that it can destroy everything. But basically what he's saying is that everything is in the mind. The whole mind is being reconstituted somehow, not so much the body. Although if these, as I say, these very intense spiritual emotions can have an effect on the body. We just have to think about how even Swamiji was affected in Amarnath, the little expansion of the heart and other things. So in this state, passions like lust and anger are burnt up, though nothing happens to the physical body. It looks like just like any other body, but the inside is all hollow and pure. Now, this is not literal that you cut open the body. What he means is that the heart is hollow and pure. That means that there are no desires or passions or anger or hatred or anything like that. Sri Ramakrishna used to give the example that when you take a pumpkin, and you scrape out the seeds and little fiber and flesh and everything, you can just scrape it out so it's perfectly smooth inside. He used to give that illustration. A devotee, does the body remain even after the realization of God? Now, this is a very tricky type of question. First of all, he's saying the realization of God. The other question is after the attainment of samadhi, and are they one and the same, and will the answer reflect both of them? And does Sri Ramakrishna give different answers at different times? There's a very, very intricate question Uh, I- if I were not such a lazy person, I would go through and give all of the different answers because I find it interesting. There's this I used to really a little bit obsess over this question when I first read the gospel, but Thakur gives many different types of answers, uh, all of which uh, give us some deeper insight because it's not such a simple thing. Sometimes we say, okay, you get samadhi, you have 21 days, then you give up the body. But it's much more sophisticated, the answer that he gives, that it's not so simple as that. So now uh, we'll get also a very nice uh, answer with a lot of subtlety to it. Master, the body survives with some so that they may work out their prarabdha karma or work for the welfare of others. Now, generally, he'll emphasize the other side, that the body will remain for some who are avatars or Ishwarakotis, who are ever perfect and uh, or born with some mission in life. Now he's talking about the other side. He's talking about what we would say is Jiva Koti, not the Ishvara Koti, but just someone who is a highly advanced spiritual seeker, who has some type of God realization, who will live in the world as a Jivan Mukta. That what about that person? Is there any fear? People would ask this question partly because they may have heard Sri Ramakrishna say before, the body will drop off in 21 days. Or, and this is another thing that I think is an important factor that Thakur just mentions once or twice, not too much, that it seemed to be commonly accepted at that time that people don't come back from Nirvikalpa Samadhi. This idea of when the boat gets into the black waters and everything, it'll never come back, that type of idea. So Sri Ramakrishna was countering that a little bit. No, there are some who can come back from it. Okay, so let's see what he says. The body survives with some so that they may work out their prarabdha karma. Okay, now it's almost not just so that they may, but they have no choice. So Thakur talks about those who are like the mango with the brick that tied to its tail. It can climb up and try to reach the top. It can stay there for a certain amount of time, but the weight of the brick will pull it back down again. So uh, they have that type of realization, but this prarabdha karma uh, doesn't necessarily have to mean that they still have some bad samskaras or tendencies, but their life is such that they're destined to live another 10 years or 20 years, whatever it is. That this is that example of uh, the momentum from the potter's wheel. When you take the clay pot is finished, the potter takes it and puts it aside, then how long will that wheel keep going? As long as it's just based on the momentum from when it was spinning. So slowly it'll slow down little by little by little by little, and that'll be when the body falls. The perfected soul is not affected by any of that. So even in that state of God realization, when the body still may have to suffer and this and that, the realized soul is somehow separate from all of that. It's still living within the body, but still knows that it's separate like that. So this is one idea that uh, either it'll be a lower type of samadhi that because of our karma we won't be able to have that real nirvikalpa samadhi, or we'll remain there for a short time and get pulled back down, or there'll be second thing, uh, there'll be some desire to work for the welfare of others. Now this will be the case with the avatar and with the Ishvarakoti, with the companions of the avatar. But Sri Ramakrishna seems to give the impression sometimes that there can be others, very good people, who also have that one good desire to work for others, and they can also come back down. this is a common theme in the Buddhist tradition, that anybody can be bodhisattva, that it's not reserved for any special category, because they don't have this avatar and Ishvarakoti category, but there'll be some with such a large heart, that is wonderful people, that even after enlightenment, that they'll want to live in the world to help other people to attain. Like the four friends that are going, and the one doesn't jump over the wall to the other side, but says, let me go back and tell everybody else. Now, we may say this is the avatar, or here we may say that this is some very uh, highly compassionate soul who also wants to work for the others. Now, does this person become a Nitya Siddha or become a Ishvara? These are all things that we can speculate about these things, but there's no way to come to any really definite type of conclusion. But it's interesting here that Sri Ramakrishna is emphasizing this side of it. Generally, with that question, he'll talk about the Ishvarakotis and avatars, that they can come back, and others will have, once they merge in this Nirvikalpa Samadhi. But if we combine these two ideas, we can say that they won't be able to merge into that Nirvikalpa Samadhi until their prarabdha karma is gone, anyhow. Which means that they wouldn't continue to live anyhow. They would have died some other way. Anyhow, too much of this will make the head spin a little bit. Let me start with this. Is interesting, this section. The body survives with some, so that they may work out their prarabdha karma. This is generally, we mean what has been done in the previous lifetime, which gives momentum to this lifetime, and which will present this lifetime with certain parameters, length of life, or maybe some people say who one marries, or if one doesn't marry, or even if one is destined to have some type of illness or something like that. This is all attributed to what was done in the previous life, called prarabdha karma. And the strict theory is that nothing can be done to prevent this, that this has to be worked out. So even if one becomes a God-realized soul, that won't take care of this prarabdha karma. Now, Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother, they soften it a little bit. They say that through a great devotion and love and everything, this can be lessened. But the very strict people will say, no, you have to go through the whole thing. Now, Thakur's position is a little bit in between. He'll give another example later about blind people bathing in the Ganges. Oh, here it is. Sorry. By bathing in the Ganges, a man gets rid of his sin and attains liberation. But if he happens to be blind, he doesn't get rid of his blindness. So this prarabdha karma won't be erased. When we say that all of his karma is burnt up, it means all of the attachments and all of the karma that is not yet turned into prarabdha karma, whatever have we done. But this prarabdha karma, according to the strict theory, is not burned up. That we simply, but we have no attachment to the body at that point. But we have to go through all of that. Holy Mother and Sri Ramakrishna reduce it to such an extent that it's almost nothing. It's a pinprick instead of a sword going through. But with regard to length of life, that this is how we can understand someone can be a jivan mukta from a young age and lead a long life in that state of freedom, and how another person can have samadhi and give up the body in that samadhi, or just live for a short period afterwards. It's explained at least in terms of this prarabdha karma. So it says, by bathing in the Ganges, a man gets rid of his sin and attains liberation. But if he happens to be blind, he doesn't get rid of his blindness. Of course, he escapes future births, because whatever we do in this lifetime, that won't bear fruit in the future lifetime. That's what gets burned up. He escapes future births, which would otherwise be necessary for reaping the results of his past sinful karma. Not just sinful karma, even good karma. This is why we're told not to have attachment to anything. Even whatever we do with some type of attachment, even if it's good things, we get a little attachment, means some type of karma comes. His present body remains alive as long as its momentum is not exhausted. And footnote, the momentum of the actions of its previous birth, which has given rise to its present body. But future births are no longer possible. Of course, this doesn't refer to the avatar or the Ishvarakoti or even the Nitya Siddhas who can be born again. That's a different story. The wheel moves, so this is a potter's wheel. The wheel moves as long as the impulse that has set it in motion lasts. Then it comes to a stop. In the case of such a person, passions like lust and anger are burnt up. Only the body remains alive to perform a few actions. Now, we're getting another little twist to this. Body may remain alive, especially for these special souls, in order to be of welfare to the world and to set an example to the world. Otherwise, we can say it's just a question of karma. And there will be many who attain to the highest state of realization and don't work for the welfare of the world and just dwell in that state of inwardness. And sometimes, as Swamiji says, they may be greater. There may be greater Buddhas than the one we know of, who never revealed themselves, spent a whole life living in a cave or something like that. But they won't have the heart that he had, of course, but just in terms of that realization. Pandit. That is called samskara. So this, what is remaining from the past actions. Master. The vijnani always sees God. So now, who is this vijnani? We can say basically that anybody who has this God realization and doesn't give up the body, comes back and lives in the body. So the vijnani and the jivan mukta, they'll be the same category, basic category, those who live in the world after God realization. But Thakur's description is more vivid, and it seems to reflect the state of mind of the devotee of God, as well as the jnani. Generally, all this idea of this jivan muktas and everything, that these are jnanis. We don't talk about this so much in terms from the devotional schools. This idea of the living in this world after attaining perfect freedom. The bhaktas, they're more interested in attaining love and real love and devotion and everything. So a little bit different tradition. But for Ramakrishna, the bhakta also attains that same state. And when he comes down, the bhakta also can be a vijnani. And he talks about the two different types, the vijnani, and the bhakta vijnani. So Shankaracharya, Thakur always accepted Shankaracharya as a perfect soul. Whether he says avatar or not, but he'll always talk about him as the paradigm of the vijnani, of the school of knowledge. So he kept the ego of knowledge, and Chaitanya Dev, or Ramakrishna, we can say, kept the ego of devotion. But they're both equally vijnanis of a different state of mind, of a different type. So, Master, the vijnani always sees God. That is why he is so indifferent about the world. He sees God even with eyes open. Indifferent about the world means for personal reasons. He doesn't care about whether it's nice clothes or good food or anything like that. He may have tremendous compassion for the world also. He sees God even with his eyes open. Sometimes he comes down to the Lila from the Nitya. Comes down to the Lila from the Nitya, and sometimes he goes up to the Nitya from the Lila. Here, this will mean that the mind will go into that state where the whole world disappears. was merged in Brahman, and from that state to come back down and see everything as a divine play, a divine sport. That'll be the Lila level. So this is what Thakur talked about, that he was told, he was commanded by the Divine Mother, remain in that state in between, Bhavamukha, where you can go in one direction, you're just on the threshold of getting lost in Brahman, and on the threshold of seeing God dwelling within everything, remaining. So Thakur would say sometimes his mind, like a boat that has to go back and forth, these sailboats that have to go on an angle. If the wind is not directly behind, that they have to go one way, that way, that way, that way. His mind would race back and forth between these two. Now, this Pandit is a huge. He has a huge intellect, very well, considered to be one of the top Pandits, but had enough humility to know when he was in over his head. So, Pandit, I don't understand that. It really shows that some modesty and humility that he can ask that question. He knows, he understands. He's in the presence of somebody who's been there and done it. That he's not just talking about something. He actually went there and came back, and he can tell about it. So he says, I don't understand that, Master. The jnani reasons about the world through the process of neti. So he's repeating what he said earlier. He'll explain it a little bit. And at last reaches the eternal and indivisible Satchidananda. He reasons in this manner: Brahman is not the living beings, it is neither the universe nor the 24 cosmic principles. As a result of such reasoning, he attains the absolute. Then he realizes that it is the absolute that has become all this: the universe, its living beings, and the 24 cosmic principles. So this process of neti takes place on the level of Lila. This takes place on the level of this relative universe, where we can distinguish between Sat and Asat. Some people may argue that, this is a dualistic way of looking at it. Some things are real, some things are unreal. But it's not. It's looking at it from this ordinary point of view. And the things that we're calling are unreal are only unreal in our own minds. It's not like there's some chairs here that are real on this side, and that side there are chairs that are unreal. It's not like that. It's not really a separate category. It's just that we've taken them to be the name and form to be something permanent and real, and not see the substance underneath. But this is from this point of view of Lila, where we live in this relative universe, where we have the feeling that we dwell within a body, we may identify with the body, we see things through the senses, all of these things that are true while we're on this level. Sri Ramakrishna never says that this Lila is false. That's why he uses this term, Lila or Anitya, rather than Mithya or Asat. He doesn't, in fact, he says, I don't like to call this world unreal, like a dream, but it doesn't rise to the same level as the Nitya. So when we're on this level, we have to do that. Whether we say, well, it's dualistic, I'm separating that which is changeful, that which is not changeful, doesn't matter. This is the way we reach that ultimate reality. And then afterwards, we understand what is the relationship between the real and the apparent. What is the relationship? Then we realize the same, that there wasn't a snake in a rope. There was only a rope the whole time. Just that we failed to see it as it really is. So this is one way to understand going from this Lila to the Nitya. That is through this path of Neti. Now, there are other ways of doing it. We can also do it by telling ourselves that everything we see is a manifestation of the divine. Sometimes this is called iti. It is not a traditional path that we'll find in the Upanishads or anything, but another way of looking at asserting what's real at this very moment. That rather than constantly saying, I'm not the body, the mind, the senses, but saying, I am one with that ultimate reality. And everything I see is nothing but Brahman itself appearing as particular objects. Different type of focus. Yeah.
I would believe that Lila is a kind of Shakti. Right?
Lila is just this relative universe which comes to us on account of the Shakti that belongs to Brahman or belongs to uh, Divine Mother, however we understand it. Yeah, if we take the Lila as this manifestation, yeah, then there's all the play of Shakti. Yeah, he explains it that way. All this is the play of Shakti. And even this ignorance that we have regarding our true nature, all the play of Shakti. Maya, Mahamaya. This Maya that we have is a function of Mahamaya. That this is part of the play that we remain deluded a little bit until we have that higher type of experience. So these are all related, of course. This idea of Lila, this idea of Maya. But Maya not in the sense of something false. My Lila is really the sense of a play. A play is real, but they're actors. And the actors aren't the characters in the play. There's something different. But the play is real. And the people playing the roles are real. But when they forget and think that they're the ones who are acting and they take the whole play to be real, then that's that state of Maya. So it's a nice way of looking at things that we don't have to dismiss everything as just the Maya means false. We dismiss it and everything. We can enjoy this play and take it seriously, and know that other people are really suffering. They maybe because of their misunderstanding, but it doesn't matter. They're still suffering. So we can understand it that way. Then he'll give another example of how we can understand how can Brahman manifest as this universe, something that seems so tangible and everything. Milk sets into curd, and the curd is turned into butter. After extracting the butter, one realizes that butter is not essentially different from buttermilk, and buttermilk is not essentially different from butter. The bark of the tree goes with the pith, and the pith goes with the bark. So Thakur gives so many different illustrations like this. That climbing the steps to the roof. That we don't know what the roof is like, so we assume it's not going to be the same as the steps. This is the first assumption. The steps are something changing. It'll be different. But when we get to the roof, leaving each step behind, we find out, oh my goodness, that the roof is also made of concrete and lime and brick dust and all of those things that get mashed together and everything, that the steps were. Then going back down, we realize they're all one and the same reality. There was never the false and the real. We just took it out. But we have to discriminate first in order to get to the roof. We can't get there unless we leave each step behind to get there. This is what we call paradox. Not contradiction. Seemingly seems to be a contradiction, but it all resolves itself in the end. Pandit, smiling to Buddha, did you understand that? It is very difficult. So he's still not quite there. Of course, how much do we understand? We can explain it. Explaining something doesn't mean we understand it. Master, if there's butter, there must be buttermilk also. If you think of butter, you must also think of buttermilk along with it. So this is a way of saying, really, if we think of consciousness, Brahman as consciousness, and this Brahman has the power to create. This power of creation can't exist on its own. It has to inhere in something. It has to belong to something. And this Brahman cannot cannot exist without that power to create. It can be unmanifested times. It's not that if there's no universe, Brahman doesn't disappear or anything, but it'll have to be there on a potential level if it ever can manifest itself. So this is that the illustration of the woman who gives birth and is a mother. That the motherhood can't be there unless the woman is there, and the woman will always be there, whether she's a mother or not a mother. But the potential to become a mother will be there prior to that. So anyhow, this is Thakur's way of saying that there's a Brahman and Shakti. There can't be Shakti without Brahman, and there can't be Brahman without Shakti. Only the Shakti is not always manifest in the case of Brahman. So there can't be a dreamer without a sleeper. That we can sleep without dreaming, but the potential to dream has to be there. So if there's butter, there must be buttermilk also. If you think of butter, you must also think of buttermilk along with it, for there cannot be any butter without buttermilk. Just so, if you accept the Nitya, so this will be the transcendent Nirguna Brahman, that pure consciousness, that ultimate reality, you must also accept the Lila, because where else does it come from? Whether it's an illusion, whatever we say about it, that we experience it. We experience this world. Somebody says it's not real. So what? It may not be real, but I experience it. It may be a dream, but I'm having that dream. Where does it come from? It can't come from anywhere else, but from that one ultimate reality. So just so, if you accept the Nitya, you must also accept the Lila. It is the process of negation and affirmation. So first Neti, Neti, and then afterwards we see that which we negated is nothing but the same reality plus name and form. If we want to look at it from the Upanishadic point of view. You realize the Nitya by negating the Lila. Then you affirm the Lila, seeing in it the manifestation of the Nitya. So Thakur would say that Lila is also real, but transitory and changing, and maybe nothing that we want to get too entangled in. But still, it's not just some illusion; it's real. If we know what it really is, then we can enjoy it as this divine play of Mother. Then you affirm the Lila, seeing in it the manifestation of the Nitya. One attains this state after realizing reality in both aspects, personal and impersonal. So we can say nirguna and saguna. If we only realize this nirguna aspect, then that's like saying that one can only be a sleeper, one can't dream. We're not getting the full weight. This is what Thakur means, full weight of the bell fruit. That we have to understand that which is nirguna is saguna also. It has that power to create this universe or project this universe or even appear as this universe. Whatever it is, it has that power. The personal is the embodiment of Chit consciousness, and the impersonal is the indivisible Satchit Ananda. Brahman alone has become everything. Now, it doesn't mean that Brahman has undergone any change. Brahman alone is that one sole reality. Sometimes Thakur will say that everything is a manifestation of Shakti. The problem is when we say Brahman has become everything, it gives the impression that Brahman can be changeful, when we know that Brahman, by definition, doesn't undergo any type of change. But just like the sun, the rays of the sun going through the prism, on the other side can create this variety of everything. In that sense, the sunlight has become all of that, but the sun is unaffected. So Brahman alone has become everything. Therefore, to the vijnani, this world is a mansion of mirth, but to the jnani, it is a framework of illusion. Ram Prasad described the world as a framework of illusion. Another man said to him by way of retort, "This very world is a mansion of mirth. Here I can eat, Here, drink and make merry. O physician, he's making fun of Ramprasad. Ramprasad Sen. Sen is a Vaidhi name. Not that he was really a physician, but O physician, you are a fool. You see only the surface of things. Janaka's might was unsurpassed. What did he lack of the world or the spirit? Holding to one as well as the other, he drank his milk from a brimming cup. Thakur liked this song very much. And this was an incident in the life of Ram Prasad. I heard there's a new movie out on him. Somebody was telling me. Anyhow, I saw the old one a long time ago. There was a black and white version. Anyhow, there was one Goswami. What was his name? Aju Goswami or something? Yeah. Who used to follow Ram Prasad around and just pester him. He was a very good poet. And when Ram Prasad would compose the songs, he would compose similar things, only from the Vaishnava point of view, and kind of making fun of him and teasing him. Yes, there's botheration. But for some reason, Thakur liked his song better than Ram Prasad's song. Otherwise, Thakur loved Ram Prasad's song. The Vijnani enjoys the bliss of God in a richer way. Now, this is that part of the Vijnani that is very hard to understand, that the Vijnani sees God, talks to the Divine Mother, feels her presence, all of the things we know about Sri Ramakrishna. Will these necessarily happen for every Vijnani? I doubt it. That we don't hear about these things so much. This is the real mystical side of this Vedantic teaching, if you want to call it Vedantic teaching, that defies any type of explanation. How Sri Ramakrishna had such a philosophical, deep, subtle understanding of the Divine Mother as being one with the Brahman, along with Shakti, and at the same time, how she was such a tangible, real, and personal God who would direct him and guide him and provide the words for him to speak and everything. How real that was also. This is astounding. I don't know how to explain it. But both were equally true in his life. That we can't deny it. This Divine Mother was something 100% real for Sri Ramakrishna. No question. And even Narendra, even as a young boy, he said, what can I say? Whatever the mother tells you, it turns out to be true. How can I deny it? Even then, when he was so skeptical. The master remained silent a few moments and then asked Pandit Shashadhar to have a smoke. The Pandit went to the southeast veranda to smoke. Soon he came back to the room and sat on the floor with the devotees. Seated on the small couch, the master continued the conversation. This was a courtesy in those days to offer some hubble bubble and everything. Master to the Pandit, let me tell you something. Now it's going to get a little bit less philosophical, a little easier. A nice little thing here. There are three kinds of Ananda joy: the joy of worldly enjoyment, the joy of worship, and the joy of Brahman. Vishayananda, Vajnananda, and Brahmananda. The joy of worldly enjoyment is the joy of lust and gold, which people always enjoy. The joy of worship one enjoys while chanting the name and glories of God, and the joy of Brahman is the joy of God vision. After experiencing the joy of God vision, the rishis of olden times went beyond all rules and conventions. So this is that Dharma Shab Charichi, given up all, even at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, that give up all dharma and adharma. That you have to do this, you can't do that. Very strict things. It goes beyond all of that. And compass always points north. There's no question that someone will do something wrong at that point. Chaitanya Deva used to experience three spiritual states. The inmost, the semi-conscious, and the conscious. In the inmost state, he would see God and go into samadhi. He would be in the state of jada samadhi. Jada samadhi Whether it's nirvikalpa samadhi or not, hard to say. Thakur very often says the bhakta doesn't go into that nirvikalpa state so much, but it's such an intense state that the body becomes as if numb, it's immovable. In the semi-conscious state, he would be partially conscious of the outer world. In the conscious state, he could sing the name and glories of God. Then Hazra said to the Pandit, so your doubts are now solved. Okay, we'll find out next time. We'll stop here. This is page 478 towards the bottom. Om Niranjanam Nityamanandarupam Bhaktanukam Bhatvavikraham Yeshavataram Parameshamidhyam Tam Ramakrishnam Sirasa Namama. We bow our heads before Sri Ramakrishna, who is stainless, of infinite nature, whose heart melts in sympathy for his devotees, who is an embodiment of the divine and the Supreme Lord, and ever worthy of our worship. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto you. Thank you, everyone. Everyone, have a nice week. Okay. End.